First off, thank you so much for joining us today. We are super excited to kind of co-present with you with our folks over at Google as well as Looker and Chubbies. We're really excited about going over some of the awesome things that Chubbies is doing with quite a few of us. Just a quick brief introduction to myself. My name is Miles McDonald. I help manage our alliances over here at Fivetran out of the Denver office. If you can tell, we work out of a WeWork building here, so it's a little bit of a small thing, so hope everyone can hear me okay. That being said, we will be recording this and be sending it out to all of you in the next few days. In addition, we do have a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. So feel free to send the questions under the questions box, which should be on towards the right of you. You guys should have a GoToWebinar little box there, so you can actually fill in the questions, and we'll make sure and be sure to cover it at the end. We have awesome folks for Q&A that will be helping us through those questions. In regards to guests, I would love to firstly introduce Perry Silverman, who I believe should be joining us, but more importantly and equally, Stephen Young, who's our lead sales engineer here at Fivetran. We are delighted to have his experience on board to help with any questions that you guys have towards the end. We do have Erin Franz, who is a technology alliances manager over at Looker. Welcome to her, and thank you for joining. And then finally, and just again, wanted to remind you guys, we do have questions Q&A, so fill out the box. And without further ado, wanted to introduce Carlos Nido over at Chubbies, and I'll let him kind of introduce himself and get started from there. So thanks again for everyone for joining.
Hi, everybody. I'm Carlos. I'm the Senior Manager of Analytics over at Chubbies. Been at Chubbies for about 2 years now, and let me take you through our data journey. So a little bit about Chubbies. For those of you who haven't heard about us, we started in 2012. We're a men's fashion brand. We try to own everything that is the weekend. So in essence, we are the brand that you like grab out of your closet when you're leaving on Friday for a weekend trip and you stuff us into your gym bag. How the brand started was back in 2012, cargo pants were kind of like dying out, and we decided that the coolest people in the world was your dad barbecuing in his short shorts back in the 80s. So we decided to make this retro shorts line where we make about 5-inch inseam shorts. We started with just shorts for about the first year, and nowadays we are in 15 different categories, including ladies. We have lady swim, lady shorts. We also do winter wear, and we've expanded to a few other items. We'll keep growing for the next few years, and hopefully we'll just keep expanding within the men's and ladies fashion world. Sweet. So let me take you through kind of how we came about Fivetran and why we did and all that. So reason we came about Fivetran is back at Chubbies. When I joined about 2 years ago, everything used to happen in Excel. So if you wanted to do any analytics or do anything like that, everything happened in Excel. If you needed information from Shopify, which is our point of sale system, you had to plug it into Excel. If you wanted to join that with your Facebook advertising, you had to pull that into Excel and just like mix and match using VLOOKUPs and index matches, and it was a big mess. So what we decided to do was implement an ETL. I come from a background of working on APIs at Google, and I was a one-man team at Chubbies, so building APIs for all of our data sources was really not an option. So went out and tried to find a better solution, and we landed on Fivetran. So before Fivetran, again, we were doing a lot of lengthy downloads for every single one of these data sources. We had a lot of people working in silos. So what that means is, you know, people who work on Facebook advertising had no idea how that was affecting customer service, and people who were sending out emails had no idea how that was affecting sales and all that. Like very siloed, very dependent on like the data reporting within these different tools. And I think the biggest, like, scariest thing that would happen is people would be looking at different information. So someone would be gathering an insight from the same piece of information that someone else was looking at, and they would be looking at two completely different things and making two completely different decisions. So we decided to get Fivetran. A little background as to like why Fivetran. For me, one of the big things was, as any startup, your plan is to grow. And looking at all the ETLs out there, Fivetran with their pricing model and kind of how they were set up, they were really a company that at the price point and everything and the tools available to us, they really allowed scalability. So if next year we were downloading twice as many rows because we had doubled our business, we wouldn't suffer that consequence on Fivetran. We were able to kind of plan in the future with more of a fixed cost model. The other thing that Fivetran gave us was a really easy startup. So it was very easy to just set up all these connectors in there. There were also another big piece is they had 99% of the connectors that we wanted. They were flexible with us. They let us test everything. So kind of what that has transferred over to is now we have everything in Google BigQuery. So as you saw there, we have a Facebook, Google, Klaviyo, Customer, which is our customer service customer service provider. And so everything before, again, was happening in Excel, and you had to go to every single web page to look at information. Now we have everything centralized in Google BigQuery. The reason for going Google BigQuery, besides any of the other warehouse providers, was it's very low maintenance. For a one-man team, it's very easy to keep data in order. It's very easy to kind of do everything in the back end so that when you port it over to your BI tool, you get more clean version of data. There's also virtually no data management. There's these pre-built Google connectors. So we use a lot of Google products. There's a lot of pre-built Google connectors that you can easily set up an API connection with. And also the Google Cloud buckets, just for uploading and downloading information, was key. So anyone who, any partner that we partner with, we try to get them to work with Fivetran, obviously, and say, work with them to build a connector if you don't have it, or, figure out how you can get your information through Fivetran to us. If they are a really small partner that can't do that, we have the option of just setting up a Google Cloud bucket for them to just download information. We can get it into BigQuery and then Looker that way. So yeah, and then that brings me over to Looker. So we went from Fivetran downloading all of our information, get it centralized in BigQuery, and now we patch everything over to Looker. So things that used to happen before Looker, as I mentioned, the really scary piece was everybody was looking at different information. So everybody at the company had their own Excel sheet that they kept track of, and there was maybe one Excel sheet that would get circulated as centralized data. But really, whenever anyone was doing any ad hoc analysis or measuring how their projects were going, everything was happening siloed. The Looker gives us this place where we can kind of mix and match information, get rid of all these Excel sheets, and just have one data source for all of our information, a very good visualization tool, and a way for everybody to kind of do their own ad hoc reporting. So it really empowers the business to make their own decisions and helps everybody kind of gather as much information as possible whenever they are looking to do a project. One really good example of this was our merchandising team works kind of off of Google Analytics and Heap, which is our website analytics providers. And what we found is now that we have Looker, they're able to kind of measure the impact of their effects a lot quicker. So before, whenever you launched the product, it had to go through weeks of sale in order for you to see sell-through rates, and then you would have to download the entire Shopify order download that they offer, put it in Excel, look how your product sold. Then you would have to wait 9 weeks for it to get returns, and then you could kind of calculate how it sold, how it returned, what was the effect of this product. Now with Looker, we can kind of see returns live, and we can see sales live. So the merchandising team is really quickly, maybe 2 or 3 weeks after we launch a product, is able to make a decision. Was this a winner? Was it not a winner? Is it doing well in ads? Is it not doing well in ads? Did it do well in email? Did it not do well in email? All within one dashboard. So they're looking at the same information for every product, and if they need a little more information, they can kind of just play around and dig around. It really empowers them to get their own information, gives them more information to work with, and it kind of takes the responsibility off of me to just always be their point person for truth, the source, always being the source of truth. I think, so yeah, Looker's been great, and it's really changed the game as to how we do analytics. So I think looking at all three of these platforms, something that has been extremely easy. I think on the side of Fivetran, as I said, getting all your connectors going and your Fivetran account manager is really easy to get set up. Getting all that information at BigQuery was a big help with that. There's literally no maintenance when it comes to data warehousing. I think in my experience, using other solutions, there's a lot of kind of data engineering that went along with that, and BigQuery has kind of eliminated that. And Looker obviously just got acquired by Google. Congratulations. And for a reason, because they're really easy to use and really easy to update, and it's very easy to kind of, people who are not data developers, just give them a little bit of access to like update LookML code and do really quick switches. And the analytical ability to people who maybe don't have a data background, it's very intuitive to them and it's very easy to use. Cool. So give you a little more examples of like impacts that Looker and BigQuery and Fivetran have made on our business. So on the product side, I think I gave a pretty unique example. Another really big piece is like on the acquisition marketing side. Before, the concept of CPA and average and order value was the only two pieces of information that our like acquisition team had. So essentially they were going off of only how much it costs to acquire a customer and how much money did we make off that customer. So like immediate looks into the future didn't exist. So now with Looker, they're able to look into the future and say, this customer was acquired on this product via this channel, and then we have their demographics data, so we're able to say, this is their age and their gender, and immediately we're able to give them a projected 30-day, 60-day, 90-day LTV based on all of our historical data. And they're able to say, you know what, we're acquiring a higher value customer through this channel, so why don't we pump up spend here? And these customers we're acquiring over here might not be as big as a value, even though they're coming in cheaper. In the long run, we're going to end up spending more money on them. So that's really that for the acquisition team. I think that's been a game changer. It's really changed the way that they approach using spend in order to acquire customers. It's also whenever they want to launch a new channel. So we just launched in Hulu TV ads. It really gives them an ability to measure the impact of these new channels and go even further and just like say, how is this comparing to our baselines, to our Facebook acquisition, all that, and then just make sure that our spend is going. We're a startup, so we have limited funds, so make sure those funds are being used as efficiently as possible. And then the last piece I think is just like the departmental benefits. So I think I mentioned this a few times in this presentation, which is just the elimination of silos is such a big win for the business. Just having everybody looking at the same information, give anybody who really wants to just dedicate a few hours to learning how to use Looker, they are now like have the biggest doors opened in terms of analytics. They don't have to like learn how to use every single Excel formula in order to analyze data. They can just click a few buttons in Looker, kind of take some Looker tutorials and just get up and running, and they can really just like be as analytical as they need to be within their function. And all of this is possible, obviously, because we have Fivetran, and we are able to go from traditionally a 5-person engineering and data team. Like back in my old companies, that's what kind of the team looked like, to get to exactly the same place where we are now. And now I'm doing it with just me and one other analyst. So really like the amount of people necessary to maintain all this has been cut in half. And and we're able to have a lot more business impact because of it. Yeah, that's the story with Chubbies. Does anybody have any questions?
Thanks, Carlos. That was super informational. I think we do have a few questions, and I guess I'll start with one for Stephen, who's from Fivetran. It's the first question that we have is, what method does Fivetran use to replicate databases? Stephen, if you're on, do you want to unmute yourself and take that question?
Yeah, absolutely. So for databases in particular, basically for every database, the methodology is a little bit different, but the philosophy is the same across the board. Every database that we support has a way for us to incrementally update data. So you get true delta syncs and don't ever have to reload tables. For example, with MySQL, we look at the bin logs. For SQL Server, we look at change tracking. For Postgres, we do wall log replication. So the initial sync is always going to be a row level read. And then going forward, after that historical data set is loaded into the warehouse, that's where we start doing that true log-based logical replication.
Awesome. That makes sense. Thank you. And again, if you guys have questions, there should be other questions. There should be a questions box that you can kind of type and then submit, and then we can make sure that those questions get answered. The next question I have is actually for Aaron over at Looker. The question is, what type of content can we find now that, let's see, what type of content we can find now that we can help accelerate building dashboards in Looker? Does that make sense, Aaron?
I think so. So we actually have this program called Looker Blocks, where we've worked internally and also with our partners on building out templates, which we call blocks in Looker, which are basically templates for LookML. So LookML is the core modeling language for Looker, and with expected schemas, data structures like those that Fivetran provides for all of their integrated sources, we can actually kind of pre-model that data, providing the core metrics as well as dashboard content to get you up and running quickly with those data sources. And then you could adapt those templates or blocks with your own specific metrics core to your business.
Awesome. That is fantastic. Thank you, Aaron. And that's fantastic. So we did just have another one pop through that I think is relevant. Sophia asks, how do you join across Shopify, Facebook, and Google tables? What are you using for data prep? Stephen, I think that might be most apt for you if you want to take that one.
Yeah, and Carlos may want to help me out on this one as well.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so we use two things. So obviously we use BigQuery a lot for data management. So I guess we used to use BigQuery a lot and Looker PDTs to get all that kind of managed. And I would say probably a month ago, we found this new solution, which I forget the name of them. I can follow up with what their website's called, but it's like Get PDT or Get Data Management or something like that, where it's essentially an external tool where it downloads all your data, helps you pull together strings between essentially a Facebook ad and a Google ad and a Shopify order, and kind of spits out data a lot more cleanly. So we've started to mess around with that technology. So hopefully the idea is to get off of Looker PDTs and Google BigQuery kind of set to run derived tables. But if not, until we get that running, we're currently kind of using Python scripts that will run tables where it connects, timestamp based connections between a Facebook ad and then click-throughs with order IDs, and then just taking that into Shopify.
Yeah, and just to add on there, this is a very common question that Fivetran gets as well. Just that, it sounds like Carlos has figured out a way to find some sort of common link between these sources. And then you take other sources as well, maybe, Salesforce and Shopify, you have the same customer ID, something like that. BigQuery makes it very easy to cross-join across your schema in the data set or even in different data sets.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Thank you, Carlos and Stephen, for doing that together. We do have another awesome question here from Christian. He asked, is it advisable to do a full data upload / refresh periodically, or is it good enough to just do one full upload at implementation and only update, parentheses, with transaction data going forward? Stephen, that's probably more of an apt question for you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. So our philosophy is to keep things going just all the time. So what that means is that we do the full historical data load at the very beginning, just at the outset of when you build your connectors in Fivetran. And then we will continue to replicate new and changed data as time goes on. And so there's really not a need to go back and do a full historical refresh because we're capturing any changes to the data. So it's not just new data that we're getting, we're actually capturing changes to that initial historical load as well.
Yeah, I'd also say that anytime there's like a new data point that you want to capture, that maybe Fivetran adds. So to to see like recently they added a kind of like a webhooks data point that you might need to replicate your whole database. There's a lot of solutions that will allow you to do that without losing data. So you really are never having to wait like a week for your data to re-upload. Fivetran really helps out to just keep flowing your data and then just get the new data point in there by doing maybe a replication on a different connector and then merging it over.
Nice.
Whenever you need a new table or a new data point in one of the tables.
Cool. No, that's awesome. And thank you both again for kind of chiming in, especially for the use case, Carlos, that you're using. Carlos, this one's for you. Asked by Thomas. The question is, Carlos, you're the man. How many different departments come to you weekly/monthly for requests for new dashboards in Looker? And how do you control these requests?
I would say we have maybe like 7 or 8 departments at Chubbies, and at least 4 of them come to me, and all different ones for a request. Dashboard. So every team has their own dashboard. I would say every team at least has 1 or 2 dashboards minimum to look at, depending on the team. So the finance team is very interested in profitability, gross margin, stuff like that. So they are set up with very specific revenue calculating, and they have like a tax dashboard so they can file taxes. And the merchandising team is very interested in sales data and not so much on like granular gross margin. So every team has a different dashboard, and every team kind of has at least one point person who's very savvy in Looker who can help them out. So my strategy is to kind of keep those people as up to date as possible and kind of help out with the big builds, and hopefully lean on them to empower them to do their own analytics as much as possible. Always there to help and answer questions whenever needed.
Awesome. No, thank you, Carlos. And I think we have a couple more for you here coming up. Alex asked, what size revenue/people was Chubbies before Fivetran made sense? That's a really great question, Alex.
Repeat that one, sorry.
Yeah, so Alex asked, what size, either revenue or people, was Chubbies before Fivetran made sense? Like, when did you either from a people perspective or from a revenue perspective realize that, for Fivetran made sense for Chubbies?
Yep, so that is a good question. So I would say we came to Fivetran very late in the game, so we probably needed an ETL at least maybe a year before we got it. We were probably at that point doing probably like, I can't give you like a specific revenue number, but we were probably doing like 80% of the revenue we're doing now already online and in retail stores. And so we were probably in an analytical world, there was probably like 10 people between like analysts on different teams and people who did analytics. And the only thing we had analytically wise was this company called RJ Metrics, which is a Magento company, and we were on Magento back then, or sorry, we were not on Magento, we're on Shopify, but they're a Magento-based company, so like mixing the Shopify and the Magento data was a little complicated, and there had no like connection to other, we had no connection to other platforms. So for us, we probably came in about a year too late into the ETL and like the API world. So I would say like the where you can get to, so for your like big connectors like Shopify and all that, I would say like day one you want to be having some sort of API connecting into a database so that you can mix and match with all your information. And then for the smaller connectors, you kind of have to do it when it makes sense. So the way I look at it is, if we're not getting $3,000, which is like the sticker price in Fivetran, if we're not going to get $3,000 worth of upsell, like revenue value out of a connector. So if we have like an NPS connector, and do I think that we're going to get $3,000 worth of NPS information by adding a connector for that? That's how I'm kind of measuring it. But the big ones like Shopify, Facebook ads, Google ads, those are pretty no-brainers to just like get visibility into that. Changes the way you think about things a lot.
Makes sense. No, and thank you. That was a really good question and a great answer. So the next one actually is for Aaron over at Looker. Casey asks, how many people do you have in your data pipelining team who uses Looker ML? Is it safe to assume only they had to learn Look ML? For instance, data analysts didn't have to learn Looker ML, correct? I guess that's probably for Carlos more than it is for Aaron, but maybe Aaron can help chime in as well.
Repeat the question, sorry.
Yeah, it's a long one. There's a few questions in there. I'll just kind of read it slowly, but how many people do you have in your data pipelining team who uses Looker ML? That's the first question. And then is it safe to assume only they had to learn, Looker ML? Basically, they were wondering if data analysts didn't have to learn, and then they were asking if that's correct.
So I would say Looker has this amazing tool, which is the GitHub downloads. So for our case, Looker had this like Google, BigQuery, GitHub, Shopify download, and Facebook Analytics download, and Google AdWords download. So it would give you the base of like a lot of base reports, like orders per day, orders per month, AOVs, all that stuff was already like pre-built in Looker, just because there's so many of their clients that work with Shopify and BigQuery. So that makes it really easy to start up. I would say I'm personally the only one who knows on my team how to like build out LookML, and we have, over 110 people looking at analytics from Looker. And just to get people on so I would say you at least need one core person, and then you giving people access to like a developer account and just having them like upload, make quick changes on like a plus or a minus to create a measure is really safe within Looker. It's really easy to track who pushed what code, and it's very, very easy to just kind of get like someone who might have never ever written a line of SQL code to just like do like a revenue minus discounts equals, net revenue. Like they can do that kind of stuff by themselves really easily.
Nice.
Yep. Another comment on that, Aaron.
Yeah, so the downloads that you were talking about, Carlos, are those Looker blocks that I already talked about. So they really make it easy to get up and running with the sources that our customers are commonly using, like Google Analytics, like Shopify, like Google AdWords. So we have those built out. And then, as you were mentioning, LookML is the basis for making all the data available to your end data consumers in a click and drop interface that anyone can use, from an analyst to a really non-technical person. So really, one core person who's that LookML expert, plus maybe a few other analysts who are SQL savvy who can pick up LookML quickly, as you want to scale your development efforts is totally reasonable.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the one last piece there is also Looker has like probably not to give them, not just because they're here in the talk, but they probably have the best customer service team out of any like tool I've ever used in terms of like helping you build LookML. Like if you really don't know how to do it, they might just go in there and just like write it for you and explain what's happening. So like it really helps get you started for sure.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So this is an interesting question for Carlos. What are your data volumes, like initial and deltas roughly? Could you speak to that? And Rajiv asked that question.
Data volumes, you mean as in like how many rows we're getting per day?
Didn't specify, but I assume that he just mentioned what are your data volumes, initial and deltas roughly?
Okay, yeah. I think initially we downloaded something like with the Shopify integration and the Facebook and Google were probably the three biggest ones. And also the ESP one, the email service provider. We probably downloaded, I don't know, 40 to 100 million rows, I want to say off the bat. Just because all the order line tables, all that stuff. I mean, I might be completely undershooting it or overshooting it. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, and how that translates to like Google BigQuery costs, I don't know, $200 maybe, which is they give you $300 free to start. So like, didn't cost us anything to set that up in BigQuery. And I would say our monthly cost in BigQuery is probably under $100 currently.
Awesome.
We're doing, I don't know, depends, but probably like a few million rows a week for each of those four. we send three all email blasts a week, and that should be at least a few million emails alone. So I would say probably like 5 million rows a week, maybe.
Very cool. That's perfect. We do have another question from Casey, which is how many concurrent users and apps do you have against your ODS, DW, and MARTs? And then he asks, what is the runtime of your average queries?
I don't know what an ODS is, or a DW, I'm assuming is data warehouse, but I'm not sure what does an ODS stand for.
Your operational data store and warehouse. I don't know if you guys have a true ODS though.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So I think it's more just the question is more around how many concurrent users are running these dashboards on Looker via BigQuery, and what's your average query runtime?
Yeah, average query runtime, I would say is probably like around 20 seconds, I want to say, to 20 seconds to like 30 seconds maybe. For the complicated stuff, if you're just running a single, so if you're on the order table, order explore and Looker, and you're just running Shopify data, you're probably looking at under 10 seconds. But if you're mixing and matching information and you're going off like a PDT or something like that, you're probably looking like, if you're including a PDT that is like a derived table joined to another derived table, probably looking at like 30 seconds to a minute. But 99% of the analytics gets run in under 30 seconds, I want to say. And in terms of, so we have, I think, 40 to 60 users right now from Chubbies, and everybody's running analytics. On days where we have like Cyber Monday, you have maybe all 40 of them running, how many orders we just placed in the last hour kind of thing. And yeah, we don't really see many issues there. Most of our like latency issues is with me writing a PDT that doesn't work properly. It's probably the real answer.
That's awesome. Well, I think that was the last of the questions, guys. Again, Carlos, thank you so much. Aaron from Looker, thank you very much. And Stephen, obviously from Fivetran, thank you for your guys' time. This has been awesome. If you guys have any follow-up questions, please let us know. You can reach out to us. Feel free to go look on our website, etc. But again, that's the last of the questions. So thank you everyone for joining. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we hope to speak with you guys soon.